Your body is just an unbelievable machine. It's doing millions of things every single second that we don't even have to think about. So today, we're going to take a tour of one of its most amazing, hardworking facilities, a filtration plant that is so advanced, it honestly puts anything we've ever built to shame.
I mean, just stop and think about that for a second. Over a liter of your blood gets completely cleaned, balanced, and purified every 60 seconds. How on earth is that even possible? Well, the secret is hiding in a pair of small bean-shaped organs that are, without a doubt, the most underappreciated heroes in our bodies.
And here it is, the kidney. It doesn't really get the spotlight like the heart or the brain, right? But trust me, without this little powerhouse, absolutely nothing else could work. So let's take a journey inside and see what makes it tick. Okay, so to really get the kidney, first we have to see its place on the team. It's the star player, for sure. But it's part of a whole system that's dedicated to one thing, keeping your body's internal environment in perfect balance. We're talking about the urinary system.
So the whole crew has four main parts. You've got the two kidneys, and they're doing all the heavy lifting, all the filtering. Then you have two ureters, which are basically just tubes that carry the waste fluid down to the urinary bladder, which is for storage. And finally, the urethra is the exit path. But all the real magic, the incredible filtration, that all happens right back in the kidneys.
All right, now that we've met the team, it's time to focus on our star player. We're going to zoom past the big picture view and get right up close and personal with the kidney itself. So your two kidneys are actually in what's called a retroperitoneal position, which is really just a fancy way of saying they're tucked in safely behind your main abdominal cavity, kind of nestled up against your back muscles. Each one is only about the size of your fist, but the complexity packed inside is just immense.
Now, if you were to slice a kidney open, you'd immediately see two different zones. There's this lighter-colored outer layer, that's called the renal cortex. And then inside that, you have the darker renal medulla, which is arranged into these really cool cone-shaped structures called renal pyramids.
And this whole structure creates a perfect funnel system. You see, the fluid that's going to become urine drains from the very tip of those pyramids into these little collecting cups called calyces. Then, those cups all merge together to form the renal pelvis, which is the main collecting hub that channels everything out of the kidney and on its way to the ureter. But here's the thing. Everything we've looked at so far, that's just the large-scale plumbing. The real nitty-gritty work of the kidney happens on a scale you can't even see. To get that, we have to zoom way, way in. So what is this number? Get this. This is how many tiny individual filtration factories are packed inside each of your kidneys. Over 1 million of them. If you line them all up, end to end, they would stretch for miles and miles. They're called nephrons, and they are the true workhorses of the kidney. And here it is, the nephron. I know, it looks super complicated, but it's really just two main parts working together. A tiny little ball of blood vessels called the glomerulus, that's where the filtering starts, and then this long, winding tube where all the filtered fluid gets processed. Now, fun fact, not all nephrons are created equal. You've got two main types. Most of them are what we call cortical nephrons. They have shorter loops and hang out mostly in that outer cortex layer. But then you have these juxtamedullary nephrons. They're not as common, but their loops dive way down deep into the medulla, and they are absolutely crucial for helping your kidney produce really concentrated urine when it needs to. So the big question is, how does this tiny little workhorse actually clean your blood? Well, it all comes down to this beautifully efficient 3-step process. This is the real core of how your kidneys do what they do. It all kicks off right here, in the glomerulus. So blood comes in through a pretty wide blood vessel, but it leaves through a much narrower one. That size difference creates a ton of pressure inside this little ball of capillaries, and that pressure literally squeezes water and all the small stuff out of the blood and into the nephron's tube. So that whole process happens in a perfect 3-step dance. We just saw step 1, glomerular filtration. That's where pressure forces a bunch of fluid out of the blood. But if we just got rid of all that fluid, we'd be in serious trouble fast. And that's exactly why we need steps 2 and 3. Step 2 is called tubular reabsorption, and it is all about recycling. As that filtered fluid travels down the long tubule, the body is just incredibly smart. It pulls back about 99% of the water, plus all the useful things it wants to hang on to, like glucose, vitamins, and important ions, and puts them right back into the blood. And that brings us to step 3, tubular secretion. This is the final cleanup phase. It's basically the exact opposite of reabsorption.
Here, the cells of the tubule actively pull any remaining waste products, some drugs, and any excess ions out of the blood and dump them into the fluid. It's the body's last chance to toss out the trash. So really, it all boils down to this simple but perfect equation. What your body finally excretes is everything that got filtered in step 1, plus everything that got secreted in step 3, minus all the good stuff that got reabsorbed in step 2. It's just a perfect, nonstop balancing act. Okay, so we've seen the mind-blowing mechanics at the microscopic level. Now let's zoom back out and talk about why this whole process isn't just cool, it's absolutely essential for your health. Because you see, making urine is just the end result. The real job of the kidneys is to be master regulators. They're constantly juggling your water levels, your blood pressure, waste removal, your body's pH balance. They even help with your red blood cell count. They are the ultimate multitaskers. Just to highlight a few of their biggest jobs, they help control your blood pressure by managing blood volume and releasing an enzyme called renin. They keep your blood's pH from getting too acidic or too alkaline, and they release a special hormone that tells your bone marrow, hey, we need more red blood cells. They are just so critical. So let's finish right back where we started. Every minute you're just sitting there, your kidneys are getting a massive 20 to 25% of all the blood your heart pumps. That's about 1,200 milliliters flowing through these two little organs every single minute of every single day. The sheer scale of that job is just incredible. It really makes you think, doesn't it? If the kidneys alone are this complex, this essential, and this hardworking, it just puts the unbelievable interconnected genius of the entire human body into a whole new perspective. And it makes you wonder, what other unsung heroes are working inside you right at this very moment?